Hey folks, Matt Easton here, scholagladiatoria at FightCamp 2017, and I have a very special guest here, Lloyd from Lindybeige. And do you ever get called Lindybeige rather than Lloyd?
All the time, or
Right.
Lindy. I don't mind, I answer to Lindy, it's fine.
There we go. So this is your first time at FightCamp?
Yes.
And is it your first time at a big HEMA event?
No, I've been to a few, but this is my first FightCamp.
Okay, cool. And you did something sort of for the first time, but sort of not this morning, in that it was your first HEMA melee. Now I know you fought in other types of melee.
I've done lots and lots and lots of reenactment fighting.
Yeah.
And my group got very good at what I learned today. I think I'm still reasonably good at is seeing what needs to be done, seeing what the enemy's doing, seeing what mistake it's making, and immediately taking the initiative. So if a gap appears, piling through that gap the instant it appears, because it may be closed 1 second later, getting around the back, all that stuff. Unfortunately, I proved rather mediocre at the actual wielding the weapons bit.
So you would have preferred being command, I presume, in that way. Commanding the troops.
Well, we discussed how we were going to do things, and I suggested the formation, which we then used all the time, and it worked. Got us through the opening bout.
I could see you were being quite tactical about it, and you were moving around the field quite a lot. It was quite interesting. I fought in it as well. We didn't get to fight.
No, I was going to call you out. Easton, one-on-one.
But so, how was it? How was the experience different or similar to things you've done before?
In terms of the manoeuvring, fairly simple. This was in just a square, a completely arbitrary edge of the world. We were told that there was lava if you took, and I did actually at one point. I took a guy down, but I felt the tiniest little flick on the edge of my bib, and I thought, was that a hit? So as he was walking out, because you have to walk out when you've been hit, I said, did I get you? And I stepped out over the rope, asking him whether I got him or not, and that
burned by lava.
So I was out. I was burned by lava. So there is a sudden edge of the world thing changes the equation a bit.
Yeah.
When I was doing reenactment, we were usually in a wood, and if you really wanted to, you could run that way and then 500 yards that way. You could run all the way around the opposition if you really wanted.
I myself died twice by going out of the bounds of the ring, which, to be frank, one of the times I was the last one standing against 3 people, so running away at that point actually seemed like a fairly good option.
But may I just describe my moment of triumph?
Yeah.
Because in the last bout we were ahead, and the opposition had always seen we'd used a very wide formation, so they decided to form everyone into a tight knot in the middle and just charge forwards into our weak centre. And I just walked out in front of them and just stood there as if dazed, a rabbit in the headlamps, and then at the very last minute I just threw myself onto my side and took 3 of them out. Yay!
And so what weapons were you using?
I was using these because these were what I had.
Okay.
No reason more than that, really. This was standing in for an arming sword. I was told I had a slight disadvantage because this is apparently very slightly shorter, but I didn't really notice. And the amount of vision I had out of my fencing mask was pretty good. So I had decent awareness, decent peripheral vision through that. So that really wasn't a problem.
Was it, given your background in reenactment, was it different having face and head strikes being a thing? Because I think some people who've come from reenactment backgrounds,
right,
in perhaps more recent years where they've forbidden thrusts and they've forbidden head hits and things like that,
right,
sometimes find it a big kind of shocker that they've now got to guard their head more than they did before.
I hadn't considered that at the time. No, I was aware that head hits were allowed. I've also done plenty of live action role playing in which head hits were allowed.
Okay.
No, I'm quite used to having to guard my head.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a big thing. When I did reenactment when we were using spears all the time, because a spear is something that's quite absent here. There were no spears at all in the melee.
We had them last year, but we found we had.
They're too good, right?
Yeah. Well, we allowed 1 spear per side, and we found that in a team of 5, the spear is such a game changer that it just became a battle over the spearman, basically.
Right. If you can take out the opposition spearman, then you win.
Yes.
And that's it. Spears are really good, which is why everyone used them. But anyway, so we used spears all the time. It was our main. So we'd form up, even if you had as few as 3 people, it was worth standing in a line, and we would then try to poke a hole in the opposition and then get through the gap. But one thing that we were not allowed to do was thrust over the shield, because there was a danger of someone parrying up into their own face, and we were not wearing masks, so our faces were pretty much exposed. So that was a shot that was presumably in reality a reasonably common shot that we weren't doing.
And how did you find sword? So the weapons that were allowed in this were either an arming sword alone, or an arming sword with a buckler, or a long sword. And generally speaking, I would say it was roughly 50-50 split between long sworders and sword and bucklers. I didn't see anybody using an arming sword alone, predictably. No. How did you find sword and buckler against the opponents you were fighting? And
fine. The amount of reach you've got with this is not very different if you step properly.
And because you're reaching out from one side and
sideways and thrust, it's reasonably long. I was actually unclear about the rules. Were the people using long swords allowed?
They were, yeah.
They were. Okay, yeah, I did see that once or twice, but I don't know how sneaky they were being. Yeah. So you can get a bit more reach if you do that with a long sword.
It's historical.
That was a bit of it.
It's in Talhofer.
I got a mighty thwack to the kneecap, which was a bit unfortunate. I don't know if you can see this, I am wearing thigh guards, knee guards, but it had slipped down and stayed down like that. My knee was bent, you can't see it, can you? And apparently he's one of the hardest hitters, is this true?
Jersey, yeah.
Someone came into my blind side with an enormous great swipe, and the tip of it hit right on the end of the kneecap, and that hurt for a bit, but I soon ran it off.
If you've seen Battle of the Nations, I think Jersey was in the Polish team for Battle of the Nations, so he's quite used to hitting hard and being hit hard. So.
I definitely felt it, but I'm fine. No, it was fun, and most people, most of the time, were not being too competitive. Which
calling their hits, and
because that can always spoil things.
And the system that we do for the melee combat, you couldn't possibly have enough judges to judge 5 versus 5 and see everything, so we have to do it like kind of airsoft or LARP, where you just call your hits.
Actually, I have thought of one big difference is that doubles were extremely common. In fact, perhaps the commonest way of going out was doubling. That is to say, both fighters hit each other at the same time. Whereas when I did reenactment, doubles happened, but they were pretty rare. If you've got a big shield, usually a fight ends when someone gets round and gets in.
Do you think that's partly because most reenactment you're pulling the blows, and here we're just whacking each other?
I would say it was a factor, but also you're not using big shields, which is another factor. If the guy's got a really big shield, your main problem is how do I get round?
You get less doubles with sword and shield, actually, and from my point of view, longsword and rapier are the two HEMA styles where you get the most doubles.
Right.
For some reason in sabre we get less doubles. Sword and buckler generally seems to get less doubles. I think it's the nature of the weapons. There's only one weapon there. They're occupying the sort of centre line a lot of the time. I think this is, with longsword you've got twice as many arms attached to it, so there's twice as many bits of meat to get hit. So often you see two people hit each other's hands or each other's arms. So. But no, that's really interesting. I mean, I personally use sword and buckler in melees. I'm much more comfortable in this environment with sword and buckler than I am with a longsword. For that reason, because it's so easy to get tagged on the hands, get incidental little hits, and with this it's one hit and out, and with longsword it's very easy for that to happen. And I've found a lot of people, especially longsworders, who they're less experienced longsworders, if you, in this environment, they're a little more, for some reason they're more likely to react to a feint. And so I was finding if you kind of did a little jerk towards someone, the longsword will go whoa, with a great big boom here, and I was managing to single time catch with the buckler and hit them in the leg, catch with the buckler, hit in the leg. So it's essentially giving you the ability to do two things at the same time, which with the longsword you can't. So. Yeah,
but I did notice that there were many, there are times where I was almost screaming instructions to people, even if they weren't in my team, because there were so many opportunities not being taken because people they're all trained in one-on-one fights, and they're not used to.
They get tunnel,
and sometimes you would see 2-on-1, and the two would pair off, and the other guy is not backing his man up. Well, if you've got 2-on-1, you must attack immediately because otherwise the odds may even up at any moment now. If you've got an advantage, you must press it unhesitatingly, and that's a matter of team initiative.
Yeah, I mean, working together as a team is what gets the teams through to the final stages of that competition. It's you know, team playing. But in addition to that, having one or two really good fencers in your team definitely helps. Definitely helps, because very often you saw, you know, when you've got 5 versus 5, if you lose a person and it's now 5 versus 4, the odds start to change very quickly. You lose another person, 5 versus 3, those three people usually collapse. But if there's one really good person who can take out 2 people, boom boom, then you immediately change the odds. But equally, if two of your guys go, but you're really good, you can bring it back again. So definitely one person can swing the course of the...
That is true, but if you have weapon wielding as a skill, like a stat on top trumps or whatever, and you have tactical awareness and reading what's going on and what needs to be done, and initiative as another skill, let's call that skirmishing skill, I would put most of my points into skirmishing skill if I wanted to win. I reckon that 5 excellent skirmishers will beat 5 excellent fencers.
Yeah, I generally speaking agree, and very often there are people who I personally know and am friends with who are fairly good fencers, but they do very well in melees because they're very good at spotting opportunities.
Right.
And they might be good enough to hold this person here, but be aware enough to notice that that person isn't looking at them, donk, hit them, and keep holding this person here. So they're not actually fencing.
A lot of what I was doing was trying to mesmerize as many people in front of me as possible. And that happened a couple of times when I was in front of 3 guys, and I would just do the tiniest of feints to that guy, and then I would look meanly at that guy, and then I would look intently at that guy as though I'm meaning to attack him. So that guy would then move across to cover him, and so I then move at him. And I'm occupying the attention of 3 people.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all going well, my teammates are outnumbering the remaining 2.
But most importantly, was it fun?
Oh yeah, it was fun.
Good. Would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Great. Okay, well, thanks a lot, and thank you for coming and fighting.
Pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We have extra videos on Patreon, and you can follow us on Facebook.